So to echo those thoughts, my kind of gut is to say take it from the facade program as well, because in my eyes, that's a bonus program, like over and above what we're supposed to be doing. And I wouldn't want to defund something that is like a core project we've already done when, you know, it's almost like the city's asking us to chip in with the facade grant for the lot holders, and it kind of matches there. So my gut says to do it from there because it's bonus money. But if we don't, for the signage project, you're talking about a calendar year, right? We're not going to probably get to it for a calendar year.
We look at it on a fiscal year basis, yeah.
So we're almost 12 months from the next. So we're probably not going to see anything for the signage project in 12, the next 11 months.
I can't answer that. I don't know what the pace of that is.
Yeah, that to me strengthens my want to go with facade. Fine, money.
That sounds like another bad. Chris?
But what you're asking for is only 119,000 out of what we have is 1.4 million set aside for the signage. So this is a small portion. It's not like we're totally scrapping the signage program. It's a matter of just pulling some money out, and then we're still can move forward with the signage program. And then if we don't really have, we don't even know specifically what's needed in that signage program yet. It seems like that we can still move forward with the signage. We're still talking about 1.2 million, 2.5 million still in the program that we have for this fiscal year to spend and to move forward with that project. And I think pulling it out of the facade grant, I feel like that's getting excitement and emotion right now that people are applying for, and it's going to make an impact quickly because private sector is moving forward with those projects, and it's just us funneling that money there. So I feel like I kind of like the idea of the signage too. It doesn't really hurt our signage program, and it could slow down the facade improvements.
Anyone else? Then I'll entertain a motion because I cannot make a motion. Chris?
I motion that we move the funds from the signage program to the June Walkover Capital Improvement Project.
All she's got to do is give the name, we don't have to get into the numbers. Basically move the resolution, but I'm changing it so you add the signage program.
Yes, sir. Yeah, can I make another
Sure.
comment if that's okay? So we wouldn't be suspending the grant program, we would just be transferring a portion of the money. There would still be over $300,000 left in the grant program. In last fiscal year, we did not expend all of the dollars in the grant program. So I just wanted to clarify that it would not in fact be like a hard stop to the facade grant program.
Okay.
So, but yeah, you would just clarify what funding source you want to use.
Ashley's right, we did not spend all the $500,000, but it also was not in place but for a couple of months. I would like to point that out.
Okay, so the motion's on the floor. I'll second it. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
All right, Ms. Christy Elflin,
Yes.
Mr. Gary Patel,
Yes.
Mr. Art Graham,
Yes?
Mr. David McGraw.
No. All right, thank you. 3-1, and it passes. Was that it?
Well, we have part of the same item.
I'm going to let our lovely planning director. I think that motion was adopting the resolution. Yes, that was for resolution 2023-07, filling in the blank to move the money from as it's reflected at number 1, coming out of wayfinding signage, and reflecting on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th whereas from 10% to 15% for the contingency. Is that right? Okay.
That is correct.
Got it.
That was the intent of the motion.
Got it. Got it. Ashley, if you're good, I'll kick off the item for discussion and you can jump in if needed. Okay. So during the development of projects, phase 3C, projects 4 and 5, I think I got that right. I want to find whoever named those. Have a chat. Beaches Energy didn't, I guess, recognize that there were going to be some potential utility relocates and new street lights that would have to be part of that project. They were not included in the scope and they were not included in the pricing. So internally, there were some discussions with Public Works, Beaches Energy, and the city manager on how to kind of fix that. And at the December briefing with city council, the city manager is prepared to discuss with council kind of that gap in funding, because historically, Beaches Energy has encumbered the costs of their own utility relocates and new streetlights and things of that nature that go along with public works projects. But they're usually kind of here and there. It's not a very large scale project like we're seeing with this one. So it's a lot kind of all at once as opposed to scattered around the city. So again, funding will have to potentially be taken from another line item, since all the funding is accounted for to pay for that in the CRA district, if that is the will of council. So we wanted to kind of get the CRA's feedback and thoughts on the matter prior to the city manager going to council to discuss kind of where we're at with the situation, and kind of offer up the options of Beaches Energy paying for these things as they have historically done in these projects, and pushing other projects a little bit further down the road, or taking it out of some other CRA fund. And I feel like I'm forgetting an option, Ashley. I believe there were three. I apologize.
So, kind of a little background on it. You know, historically, Beaches Energy tried to align some of its work with other city infrastructure work. And historically, Beaches Energy has absorbed the cost when they've had to kind of do line relocates for, especially sewer, because I recently learned, not being a construction person, that everyone has to move for the sewer line. They get first preference in the right of way. So Beaches Energy had historically kind of aligned their projects, and they absorbed the costs. And if you remember, maybe last summer or year before, when we did the work on Jacksonville Drive, there was a change in the plan, and it moved across the street, and it was in conflict with the Beaches Energy line, and the CRA did reimburse Beaches Energy for their unexpected work in that area. So we have kind of a precedent of the CRA kind of looking at that and saying that they would make them whole, because Beaches Energy had not planned to do that work. And so in projects 4 and 5, Beaches Energy's preliminary estimates are between $400,000 and $500,000 to do line relocates on the entire scope of work that will happen over the next 2 years. And so the kind of path forward, which we're seeking to kind of develop a formal policy for, which is why the city manager is going to council in December, is we continue to have Beaches Energy absorb the cost of it. And if Beaches Energy does so, then they're going to have to reprioritize their capital improvement plan projects for the next 2 years to accommodate that. Or the CRA agency, the trust fund, picks up the cost of that, at which time we have to do kind of the exercise we just went through. We'll have to go through the projects for the year and kind of reprioritize them, because it's not really a change in scope, it's not really a change of intent, it's just that Beaches Energy had not aligned its work in that area, had not planned to be back in that area at the same time we're going to be there for projects 4 and 5. So they have to kind of add this project to their work and go forward and do it to make sure that this project continues forward.
Are those the only two possibilities? What about Beaches Energy just paying for it and just taking out rates specifically for the rates in that area that the city pays?
We are not structured, our rates are not structured to kind of do almost a special assessment of the area. We don't have a mechanism in place to do that or levy that kind of assessment.
I know how to fix it.
Yeah, you do.
Members? Thoughts? Concerns? Questions? Gary?
Yes, how do we, in the future, make sure we don't miss this step in the process? Because I would have thought that Public Works would have sat down with Beaches Energy and kind of worked through what was going to happen in the way of infrastructure work and so forth. I don't know, this may not be fair questions to you, but somehow we need to set up the process in such a way that we don't have this hiccup again.
And then the city manager had the same kind of thoughts about how do we kind of speed up our communications and kind of align our project plans a little bit tighter tighter. And so there is conversation in administration, and I think there'll be actions as part of the CIP process citywide to kind of bring the different projects together and make sure that we don't have any kind of conflicts or overlaps. So I think that there's kind of, it's on Heather's radar, it's on my radar, and it's on the other department's radar to kind of closely monitor this going forward.
Because the other thing that I've noticed, and this is a little bit of an aside, but there needs to be a little bit more coordination between the projects that the city is proposing to do and the projects that the CRA is doing, and who funds those projects, because there's certain things that we could do within the CRA districts that wouldn't have to come out of the general funds of the city. But because they've been put on this on the CIP list and have been there for a period of time, unless we take them off and we wait 3 years, we as a CRA can't do anything. It would just be good that there would be a real coordinated effort in the future as to how we move forward with projects so that we're getting the funding from the best possible source and using the monies in the best possible way for the city. That's just a little bit of an aside, I'm sorry.
David?
So this process happens all over the city everywhere, and Beaches Energy just pays for the relocation of everything. My view of CRA funds is that it should be used to improve and make things better, and this sounds like we're being asked to repair a mistake, and that's not going to improve anything, so I feel like it's on them to do that, just like they do it everywhere else. But then my gut is that saying that it's way easier for us to get the capital improvement plan changed than it is for them. So that's where my thought is. I don't know if that helps anybody, but that's my thoughts.
Christie?
Do we know what Beaches Energy would have to change? Like what projects they would have to delay because they all have to fund it?
That's something they're looking at now. They're being asked to kind of evaluate the priority of their projects and figure out which ones can kind of sit out a year or two to accommodate this if they are asked to bear the cost of it. I will say that in the case of relocations by private entities, they are required to kind of make Beaches Energy whole for that relocate. And in this case, because we have the sewer line, it's pushing out the electric lines. But again, I'm not an engineer, so I'm probably saying it all wrong, and Dennis and I can kind of correct exactly what I'm saying.
Well, the difference between this and I think the sidewalk down on the south end, is we as a board made the decision to move from one side of the street to the other. So I didn't have a problem with reaching into our bucket to pay for the utilities. When it comes to the sewer improvements and those things, that's not something that we did, that's something that Public Works did, that we were funding for them. And so as far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't want to start the president reaching into our funds because they happen to be there and readily available. Now, you guys have to make the decision moving forward because I disagree that the first one set the precedent. I think this will be setting the precedent. And do you want to be the easy access? I mean, if you need to release the money, that's a conversation this board would have with the city council or have with the city manager, and you can make a determination. But I don't know if you should be the first stop. And that's just my opinion from somebody walking out the door.
So if I might add something, I remembered, Heather, what the third option was.
Thank you.
Because it was like, so the third option is almost like a little bit of a hybrid. We set aside a contingency for this project, and we could utilize the contingency dollars to kind of defer this decision until later. So the benefit of utilizing the contingency now is it's a very quick solution to move forward, and it gives more time for the decision making. But the drawback to using the contingency right now is this is the very beginning of the project, and we have a contingency for what we don't know, what we could not anticipate as part of the project. And so if we have something come up, then we'd be coming right back to have that conversation. So the benefit and drawbacks to that third option.
It's up to you guys. I say that Beaches Energy's got plenty of funds, and it's just a matter of more headache than anything else for them to do. Garrett?
I would ask Beaches Energy prepare a complete document to show us exactly what the costs are going to be, what, you know, what the implications are and so forth, and give us a good cost estimate of how long we're really talking about doing here. Right now, we're talking in very general terms, and I don't think we've got the whole ball of wax put together yet the way it needs to. I think the conversation needs to happen between Beaches Energy and the city manager and so forth, and then have the parties come back, if they think it's appropriate, come back to us, and we can have that discussion at that time. Because I wouldn't be able to render a decision at this point, because I don't have the facts to really make a decision.
Taylor?
Just for clarification too, this is going to that council briefing, and so I'm hesitant, I want to make sure I word this as correctly as possible, but as far as like a decision, there won't necessarily be a decision made today, absolutely there won't be. We would not expect you to get this information and decide on the fly. And it's going to be a briefing, so council won't necessarily make a concrete decision at that point, but they will give staff and Beaches Energy and our CFO and administration direction. And so we really wanted to hear what you all had to say, which we made notes of. We'll give this back to administration, and then those will be relayed to council. And then at that point, it kind of lies in council's hands on what direction they'd like to see this go. I believe, did I word that correctly?
You got it spot on.
Okay.
So I think
Thank you.
today is just informing the board of what's going to happen at that briefing in December and getting your feedback for Taylor to kind of carry back to administration. We just wanted you to be aware that this is kind of a discussion we've not really had to have formally in the past. And so what is ultimately going to be sought from council's policy direction. And then as a result of that policy direction, we might be back before you seeking funding or just giving you an informational update.
So basically, the briefing that's coming before council is, there's supportive or they're not supportive of this idea?
Well, we're looking for policy direction going forward because in the past, Beaches Energy absorbed the cost because it was not significant to their operation. This particular project has kind of risen to the level that it's significant enough that it's going to impact the way they approach their remaining capital projects this year because like the Downtown Redevelopment Trust Fund, all of the Beaches Energy reserves are spoken for at this time for projects.
Yeah.
Just so I'm very clear on what's going on. How is this unique compared to any other situation outside of one of our districts? So, because there's lots of roads that have been improved in Jack's Beach that are outside of our, CRA. And if I can't figure out a distinct uniqueness to this situation, I can't support spending our money on it.
Understood.
So there is no unique difference?
In this particular case, the work was not timed up. And so in other kind of citywide infrastructure projects, I think they try to coordinate and they try to kind of, if they need to be in the same area at the same time, they try and work that out and Beaches Energy folds it into its CIP plan. In this case, Beaches Energy did not intend to be back on 2nd Street moving their lines at this time.
So could you say that our push to get stuff done is the reason that this is a unique situation that we got ahead of the process?
It's possible, but I can't say definitively that that's exactly how it played out. But, I think that there's merit in that thought.
So I think more than anything else, we need some sort of consensus. They've read our thoughts, but maybe we should tell them as a board if we support this idea or not support this idea.
I'm hesitant the same way that you are about setting precedents for moving forward. So I would say my gut would be that this is Beaches Energy's. This should come from their funding. But again, I'd like to have a little more information too.
Here?
I basically feel the same way at this point. Again, because I don't have enough information, I think there's no real justification at this point to come back here and ask for the funds.
Dave? Sounds unanimous.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Ashley, are you done with this?
I am.
She's like, yeah, y'all been enough for one day.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
Thank you as always.
Thank you.
Okay. Back up to staff report.
Yes, sir. All right, really quick that aren't in the staff report that have just kind of transpired since this was written. I did not include a ton of information, but I do want to touch on this downtown plan amendment process. We had a literal whiteboard session, Heather, myself, Jim, Molly, city manager, I think even stopped in at one point, and a couple of hours, and we kind of just threw spaghetti at the wall to see what stuck, and kind of compared what we've got currently to what our plan needs to look like, goals, et cetera. And so we are going to work on drafting up a basically drafted new plan for downtown to bring to you guys the first of the year. Our goal is going to be the January meeting, but if we continue to have weeks like we have this week and last week, I can't promise for certain it'll be ready by the 15th of January, but we're doing everything we can to have that to you guys in January. There may potentially, and this will come at a later time again on development updates, but there will be additional construction, it'll be minor, coming on First Street as part of Spring Hill. So there will be build out for that tenant space coming. We just had a meeting on it yesterday. And so we will keep you updated on that. We are, yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, I just got a little confused. You said Third Street?
First Street.
Oh, First Street. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Probably my southern drawl made it sound like I said third. Sorry. No, on First Street at Spring Hill, so where they have that empty tenant space on that ground level, that is going to be a separate entity in and of itself. So that's going to be filled, which is great because that's one less vacant storefront. So we always like to see that. We also met internally with CHW regarding the urban trails. Again, this is one of those times where we are really learning and working to make sure everybody is communicating, and so we wanted to make sure on our side, and I say ours, parks, it's, you know, spearheading it, but there were a couple of comments and concerns from Public Works that came up at our first internal meeting, and then we had a second internal meeting last week with CHW present, and went literally street by street by street on every single sidewalk, and so they're going to be shifting a few things around for us. I think we're hoping to have that back this week so we can go ahead and get the public meeting scheduled before Christmas. We want it scheduled early December, but we just don't have a date on that yet, so I apologize, but as soon as we do, you guys will know. Tomorrow we have a meeting with legal to talk about this P3. As you all know, our city attorney is returning home to Virginia. We will miss her dearly, and unfortunately, she was unable to squeeze this in for review, so Cliff Shepard and his firm are reviewing our RFQ, and we have a call tomorrow to finalize that, and once we get the stamp from them, procurement is ready to go, and that will hit the street. Are any of you familiar with Havoc Studios? Anybody? Okay, they're a studio. They're part of the Beaches community. It is Jenny Hager with UNF, and they do the big sculpture garden. So I talked with the art committee. You know, as you know, for the statute, we can procure or commission a piece of art. So I have met with Havoc Studios to give us an estimate and design for our first Sea Life in the City sculpture. So she should be getting me a design hopefully in the next week or two. I will get the art committee to look at that and get that to you guys for approval. So we're really excited to have some local sculpture pieces. And then Mr. Ernesto Morange, who is doing our Seawalk mural, he is on his way here, and he will be here tomorrow. So we're going to meet with him tomorrow. He's getting started, and Friday you'll see his bucket truck is getting delivered, and he plans to be in and out of here in less than 2 weeks. So we're very excited. So if you're out and about, please stop by and introduce yourself. I already warned him people will be coming up and talking to him, so we're very excited for that. I think those were all of the kind of additional things. We will be talking to the art committee tomorrow about the next steps with Mr. Cortada and this roundabout corner sculpture. You know, you guys approved it, council approved it, and so now we have to coordinate with his schedule to get him up here because before he does the final design, he wants to meet with the various boards, council, and public. So we're going to talk to the art committee about that tomorrow, and I can kind of email everybody sort of a update on where that stands.
Quick question, what time is the art committee meeting tomorrow?
3, same as ours, 3 to 5.
Here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yep. Other than that, I know there's a lot in the staff report. You know, we've got a lot of stuff that's truly in limbo. I don't know if it's a product of the time of year. Everybody's busy. We just got a lot of things that are still in waiting. We've also had a lot of random, weird problems pop up with things that we did not anticipate. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of the staff report?
description, it talks about the list of projects that are irrelevant
Yes.
to the downtown side. What kind of projects would fall into that?
Parcels that are privately owned that have since been developed. So that called for maybe a piece of artwork that is literally a building now. So like this corner right here, we're not gonna put something there. There's a new restaurant. Things that are obsolete in the eyes of the statute. So since the last plan amendment, when y'all had that color-coded thing done in 2019, the statute changed and it actually lists out explicit things like you cannot do no matter what. And some of that is still reflected a little bit in our plan language, so it's irrelevant, it's obsolete, we literally can't do it. And off the top of my head, I can't remember all the specifics, but there are just some things.
I think I understand what
Yeah.
you're saying, relevant, that I didn't.
They don't follow what we're supposed to do, what council's asked, or what the statute says.
Says, okay.
Yeah.
You said we're gonna be receiving something on the plan amendment in January?
That's our goal, and it'll be the plan itself. We're working pretty hard to get a draft completed of the new downtown plan.
Of the new downtown plan?
Mm-hmm.
Who's putting the plan together?
We are.
So we don't have an outside consultant doing it?
No, we didn't need one.
Jim.
I mean, Jim, I don't consider you outside anymore, but yeah, we have this other group, but I mean,
You're still working with staff on, or staff is still working on, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get my board here, in reference to the pier parking lot, you're still trying to get pricing and so forth?
yes.
on that, and do we know roughly where we stand with that?
People they don't like us. They don't want to bid. I'm just kidding. They're not bidding on our projects. And we're we're having a really hard time because we were really hopeful to kind of get a master bid, if you will. That's obviously the best route. You get one person, one group in, they do everything. That's just not the case on this project. So that's why we've had to upload these, individual plans and sets. If you want to come by my office one day, I'd love to show somebody the amount of plans I have for this project now, because we've had to break out irrigation, we've had to break out electrical, we've had to break out asphalt, we've had to break out painting. So we're just patiently working with FH Passion to get bids on each of those items.
So we don't know when we're going to need pricing back from.
I would love to bring something to you next month, but to be honest, I don't think I will. It's the holidays and people are in and out as it is. I would love to see that happen though. I'm doing everything I can.
Is that gonna make you the general contractor?
No, God, no. I do not have those qualifications. I appreciate you for having that kind of faith in me, but no, it's FH Passion. So that's going to be our GC. In our contact with FH Passion, he's great. He's been out here a few times. He's made site visits. He's wonderful to work with. So I don't worry about them. They're very responsive. It's just a matter of having to get people here to do the actual work. Otherwise, I'm going to be out there with a jackhammer busting up the parking lot at some point. So yeah, nobody wants that.
In reference to the papers on 4th Street, particularly in front of the hotel.
Hold on.
Somebody went through and marked
Hang on.
papers with a blue marker. Is that a particular reason why?
Yes, because I literally just got an email, didn't even have time to, I forgot I'd gotten this. We're having those fixed. So the areas where there was the concrete spillage and the issues, that's all getting fixed. So if you see people out there over the next couple of weeks pulling things out, putting ones in, those are being repaired. So, and Mr. Barron has been coordinating that. So thanks, Dennis, if you're listening.
I would just add to that, particularly at the stormwater inlets.
Yep.
There was a significant depression again in that same location that was repaired maybe a year and a half ago. It's gotten pretty bad over the last several weeks, and there's going to have to be a little bit more done than just replacing pavers, I think, in that area.
All right.
But please, have somebody look at that also, because it's pretty significant.
Okay. Yeah.
Do we have a schedule for the permits and so forth for the south end of the Passion Park?
I don't yet. They did reach out to CHW to coordinate with us, and I forwarded it to our building official and I talked with Heather about it, what kind of permits that we're gonna have to pull and how we're gonna, because we're going to do the clean water like reuse. We're not So they're working right now on figuring out what permits they're gonna have to pull for that, so I anticipate I will have that for you guys next month.
Thank you, that's all.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and it's on your sheet with dates, but Deck the Chairs, obviously, is setting up, and what a really cool time. I mean, I hate that the mural didn't get started earlier, but at the same time, we're gonna have so much foot traffic out here now, and so to have an active art piece going up right there, I think is gonna be really cool timing-wise. We're gonna get a lot of exposure, so.
Chris?
I'm circling back to the development plan you guys are working on. Is it going to bring together all of the plans that we have out there? No. So still the signage plan separate, art plan separate,
Yeah.
trails separate.
So, well, yes and no. So the trail portion, so we'll reference in the downtown plan the connectivity corridors, because the way the statute works is any project that we want to fund, do, or even in the future anticipate doing, it has to be reflected in our plan. So we kind of ran into a little bit of trouble the last time this was done, because you kind of throw in everything but the kitchen sink, and it can become a little excessive, and that's sort of where we ended up. So we're filtering through that, figuring out what's even still allowed, and then making sure we include the projects that we know we have planned, and then making sure we have appropriate language in there for projects we could anticipate. So it's really cleaning up what we already have and making everything in it relevant to what the statute says now.
Okay, and so still have a physical plan?
Yeah.
And then a backup of language to go with it? Is that what?
Yeah, so, and when we make these plans, it'll makes everything prior, with the exception of the creation of the agency, basically null and void. So what's in that plan becomes our gospel, if you will. So, and if I apologize, because like I'm not explaining this very well. So if you, everything will be listed in the plan. I mean, we're not talking like 3 pages. It's going to be a pretty hefty document, but it will be a lot easier to digest than that multicolored sheet and everything we gave you when you were, just appointed. So now you just got used to that we gave you. Now you get a new one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got a question. I don't know if this is staff report or old business, but after staff report, we'll straight to old business anyway. So we were talking before, and staff was getting together about the COO, certificate of occupancy, and we're looking at what we can do moving forward. Where does that stand?
That, I'll turn that more over to you, because that was going to have to be a code change.
Trying to refresh my memory. So this went back to the First Street pavers and ensuring. Yeah, that's still on the table to kind of figure out what to do with that, since, like Taylor mentioned, we are going to be sans internal legal counsel until we get someone new on board. Some things that we had in the works are kind of a little bit on pause until we can get someone that can participate in those discussions to make sure we're not, we're doing it correctly for the city attorney. So it's not happening, it's just kind of on the back burner for now.
Because I went back through, we'll say, some of my old notes. I was moving things out of one closet. And years ago, decades ago, like back when we did some of the high rises, there was a development agreement, a development plan, and a lot of times going into all of that, I mean, we actually had some treatments that weren't even paid at the time, and part of the entire plan was you guys would do your stuff, you guys would pave this road, it would look like this when it's done, and until all that happened, there was no coming in requesting a COO, because the plan agreement told you this very specifically was done. And I guess my question is, why can't we do that sort of thing now?
Yeah, and we do. And in this case, it was done, and I can't explain why whoever went and looked at the pavers that were replaced by the Spring Hill folks thought that it was acceptable the way that it was. I mean, we could come up with speculatory reasons all day, but it was in theory done. So it's no different than if they have to tear up a road that's not pavers to run a new sewer line. It has to be put back the way that it was in theory. So I think that was a unique situation too. And now that it's like kind of on everyone's radar, the fire marshal, the building official, myself, Public Works, I think moving forward we'll do a better job even before we get something in place. When it kind of came down to the certificate of occupancy for the building, to the building official's point on that matter, he can't hold up a CO for a building for something that's not related. So his hands were tied to let the building open up. The street's really another matter that comes back to somebody making sure that it was back the way that it was supposed to.
So you can't tie the development agreement to the COO?
No, we can't. We can't hold up a building being provided a certificate of occupancy because the street isn't finished. We have to tie it back to something in the building code. So there needs to be something else in place, like some type of contractual agreement or MOU or something, and this is why we need to get legal involved, because there needs to be another process in place for that to happen.
So I thought the development agreement was actually another contract.
Well, we're not doing development agreements. There are development plans that are in place, but this would be something different. It might be in the form of a contract. You're using the street for closure for safety, staging, storage, whatever it is, and the contract with Public Works, just like we do for the teacups, the street ends. They have to put it back the way that they found it. So we just need to find the right mechanism to move that forward and have it done correctly.
Am I saying this correctly? You've done these, I'm sure, 100 times before. We've done plenty of development agreements downtown.
Yes, sir.
And you need this mic, so somebody ask what you're saying.
Jim Gilmore, the Southern Group, yes, sir.
So those development agreements can be tied to holding up occupancy of the building.
Not really. There has to be requirements that have to be made. Generally, in the development agreements, there are schedules of performance for completion to get it done, and frequently, and most commonly, the development agreements are tied to incentives that would come for a developer for completion of the project. And the incentives that are being done today, at least in most parts of the country and in downtown, are tied to a certificate of occupancy before a completion grant or a final incentive would be granted to the developer to make the project work.
But in this case, let's just go back. I don't need to be picking on the hotel. There was no really incentives coming from the city.
No.
To do that.
No, but you were asking about the formal
Yeah,
development
yeah.
agreements and contracts that are normally being completed
Had
today.
there been, we could have, had
That
there
is
been an
correct.
incentive in place, we could have then held it up
That is
based out of
correct.
the incentive agreement, but we
And
don't, right?
This is all something that's just all negotiated up front.
That's correct.
And so,
Exactly.
One would anticipate that, assuming that we get a P3 project,
We will have it in there, I promise.
then those items will be in the agreement, absolutely.
Uh-huh. Because of that.
Tied
we
to
are
current
establishing-
law as required to get a CO, but also tied to any incentives that might be awarded to the developer for project completion.
okay. Where are we with the process of hiring a new attorney?
The application closed Friday. They have candidates that are qualified, and they're scheduling interviews. That's all I know.
So
Nobody tells me, I'm just kidding.
hopefully by the end of the year,
We hope so.
You know, and I would be very hopeful they would make an offer by the end of the year, but as these positions are, it's normally a 60 or 90-day notice to their current employer, so we're hopeful if they're able to make an offer, it'll be sometime the first of the year. And the city has always been really good about, like, when they do interviews, the department directors are involved, and so Heather will be involved, you know, other folks will, you know, all be involved to get to hear and interact and actually interview with the potential candidates.
here.
I just wanted to go back a little bit, and I think you may have heard it too, Taylor, when you were at the FRA conference. One of the things I think Delray Beach might be a good example, where they put together a matrix that clearly, when they did a project, that matrix identified where in the state statutes that project is allowed to become, where it's in the plan, and it follows
and that's something, you know, that's my fault. I do that just because at the end of the year when we have our audit, like I have to be able to show this is where we did stuff, but it's just something that I have saved in our files. But yeah, that's something we can easily add, you know, maybe not even every month, but quarterly as a part of the staff report, just kind of updating you. Totally. We can do that.
You should want to give more information.
I would love to. I'm gonna put, if he keeps giving me all these ideas, I'm gonna start having Gary come up here and help me with some of this. I'm just gonna call you.
Okay, so, any more questions or comments about the staff report? Okay, old business, any other old business that come before us?
Can I,
Sure. Yeah.
one quick note, I thought Public Works would be here this afternoon, but, or in this case, I guess it really falls into the framework of Parks and Rec, but the other weekend, the Sunshine Park was packed. I don't know how else to describe it, but, and we had some ropes that were up to keep cars off of the newly sodded areas and things to that extent. Well, some of them are down, some of them are gone, and cars were again parking up on the grass areas, particularly in the areas where now they've just got through putting in the irrigation system.
Okay.
So I'm concerned that, you know, these larger vehicles, trucks that are parking up there could very easily damage the irrigation system, and we need to get something up there to kind of protect all of that for the investments that we're making.
Okay. And adding parking over there, you know, it's not gonna be a ton, but adding it on the other side of that fence area, that parallel parking we talked about, it's probably been months ago, that is something that we were still planning for. I know Parks was in this fiscal year, so may not be a lot, but every little bit will go a long way. But I will make sure we talk to Trevor, and I'm sure he's already on top of it because he's pretty particular about the grass down there. He's very peculiar when it comes to his grass.
I mean, you know, the best part of it all is that it's such a valued park by so many
Absolutely.
families who it
Yeah.
just, you know, blows me away every time I go through there and see
Right.
the numbers of cars that are there.
We received a lot of that same feedback from the conference, and then even since the conference, we've literally received thank you letters and emails and calls and people just like raving on and on about that, specifically that park. So,
Thank you.
Any other old business?
get ready for Deck the Chairs, setting up, we're excited.
Cheers. Well, guys, this may be my last meeting, because council is picking board members on the 18th. So I don't know if they're gonna have the new people in here on the 20th or not.
They will not until January.
You got one more.
You got, well, you gotta stay with
We're
us.
not giving away that.
Nice try.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, why I had you and I'm thinking about it, I just want to thank everybody because I've enjoyed the time here. I think we've gone through a lot. One of our best buys was bringing Taylor on board. I'm glad. Trust me,
Thank you.
we fought and kicked for a while before it finally happened. And I think we kind of wore everybody down to the point where it's like, okay, this is how we're gonna make it fit. And I'm so glad we did that. So number one, make sure you always keep her in that position. Number two, Jim and his guys, Southern Strategists, definitely worth the money. I mean,
Amen.
they do a great job, and I know their contract's probably coming up in the next month or two. You probably need to put it in the next one, to make sure that he's here because he's a wealth of knowledge.
Yes.
And he was actually the one that put together the CRA way back in the day, so.
Things are unlisted.
Yeah.
That's just,
Stay all the way from back then, is that what you said?
Yeah, literally.
so, and as you can see, I mean, it's worked very well. And so I'm glad that he agreed to come back and to help us and the transition from, we'll call it the old regime to the current regime. And there was a lot of growing pains, a lot of angst, but it's good to be with the point we are now. And number three, and most important, and you guys should never forget this, there's no reason why downtown Jack's Beach can't look like Disney World. The funds are there, the people paid extra taxes because it is an enhanced area, and there's no reason why we can't give them a beautiful downtown area. And no matter what anybody tells you, being said, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.